Let's talk about PRONOIA. Hello, Damoon. First I'll say hello to my friend Damoon, then we'll talk about PRONOIA. Okay, let's talk about PRONOIA. PRONOIA is defined by the psychological psychiatric community as the opposite of paranoia. What it means is people who have PRONOIA are people who believe that the world or the creation, or however they describe it, is acting in their favor, is friendly toward them, is eudaimonic. It's very interesting, and I'm going to show you the links to the English Wikipedia definition of PRONOIA and the Hebrew Wikipedia definition of PRONOIA. And if you speak both languages, you'll see the difference. If you don't speak both languages, you can put, I presume if you're listening now, you're speaking English primarily, put the Hebrew into a translation device of some kind and take a look at the difference. This is very, very typical of the Jewish way of thinking, that the rabbis have systematically inculcated into the Jews. That imagining that the world is positive is thought of as being pathological. Where the English definition recognizes that it might be pathological if it's totally unrealistic, it also recognizes that it is a what they call spiritually advancing way of thinking. Now, you know I don't like the word spiritual. I prefer to think about things in terms of moral and actual. But the Hebrew doesn't recognize that at all. It considers PRONOIA a psychiatric disturbance. This is very, very meaningful, and it is the core of the reason why the Jews suffer the way they do. The Jews have been conditioned to expect that the world is negative, that it is a hostile world. I just heard the other day of a rabbi. He looks, he looks like a Jewish Santa Claus. He looks like everybody's Zadie, like he wouldn't hurt a fly. But he's talking about we're living in a world that is essentially hostile, and they speak in these terms as though they are givens and axiomatic, and don't even think about arguing with it. And this is the reason why the Jews suffer so. They expect that the world is going to be hostile. They expect that the Goyim hate them. They expect that there are going to be all kinds of dangers lurking, and they have to be on guard all the time. And because the mind is so powerful, they are actually creating those conditions. This is so true that even when I tell them and show them with the Hebrew that we have the ability to determine the hativ, the quality of the creation itself, I'm summarily ignored. I'm recommended to the administration of the social networks for shadow banning. We stop suffering when we adopt a view of PRONOIA toward the creation. What does that mean? It means that for me, Hashem is guiding the entire creation to be kind to me, to be good to me, to advance my evolution, to protect me, to keep me peaceful, not to aggravate me unnecessarily. And that is the way reality lines up around me. That is why a year, a solar year, after a war began in this country, my reality still looks like this. Because I have not internalized the rabbinic mantra that we're supposed to repeat on every Pesach, and it's terrible that they do it dafka on Pesach, because the value of Pesach is 148, which is Netzach, which is eternity. The rabbis have people saying at every single Pesach Seder, in every generation they rise up against us and Hashem rescues us from them. It's a mantra that's repeated in every traditional Jewish home every year, generation after generation. What do you imagine that does to the collective consciousness of a people? There is so much massive epigenetic damage in the Jewish people, and now with what's going on with this war, I'm even more worried, more concerned. It's going to be massive unless the Jews do real tshuva, not the rabbinic version of tshuva, which keeps you miserable, but do real tshuva, which means going to Hashem and saying, okay, what do you expect from me? How am I really supposed to be walking through this creation? And you'll get the answer if you ask sincerely. If you ask sincerely, you'll be told sincerely. It is essential to adopt a strong conviction that one is living in a creation that Hashem continually makes for our best interest. There are two very closely related Hebrew roots. One is She and Kaf Nun, Shachen, that is where you dwell. And the other is Shein Kaf Nun Ayin, which is to be convinced of. What we are convinced of, our convictions, are where we live. That is what will determine the shape of reality, the quality of the material, the quality of our experiences. It all begins with how our minds and hearts are directed, what's called kavanah. This is also related to the shikun. There's the kaf and the nun again. Kavanah means intention. Where our intentions are is where we live. What we are convinced of is where we dwell. And if the rabbis were honest, when they came back to Eretz Yisrael, they would have undertaken the business of returning to the original tradition. The fact that they so jealously hold on to and protect a tradition that has brought us misery since the 3rd century BCE, since the generation after Shimon HaTzadik couldn't hold it back anymore. Only Shimon HaTzadik was the last of those from the Knesset HaGedolah who were able to hold this erroneous learning back. After his time, the Seleucids just have a field day on us, and to this day the rabbis do not know that they brought the Seleucids, they brought the Greeks, they brought the Egyptians, they brought the Romans into being. They do not accept it. They think that they're just there, as though Hashem is creating beings that are hostile toward them, and they have to deal in a hostile universe. So long as one thinks that way, so long as one's convinced that that is true, so long as one has been told that by their father and their Zaidi and their great-grandfather, that this is the case, this is the immutable truth, and nothing can change this, is going to be continual misery generation after generation. And the tragedy of that is that all of that weight and momentum and mass can all be nullified with one different thought: to adopt a view of PRONOIA. So everything exists for our benefit. Everything is advancing me. Everything is supporting me. Everything is protecting me. I am surrounded on all sides by infinite protection at Hashem's command. And then everything changes. Most of the time, our life goes smoothly. Things go off without a hitch. The money shows up, the business deal gets done, it just happens virtually effortlessly. And when we do encounter a sticking point, we know that then too we are being protected, that Hashem is saying, don't go there, that's not where you want to go. That's not the right direction for you. So even when things happen that are not the way we would have planned, they seem to be a spoke in the wheel, we know that Hashem is slowing down the wheel so that we can stop and go in the direction that's better for us. And this is PRONOIA. And this is something that when the Jews adopt this way of thinking, internalize it, it will become their reality, and this will be the beginning of their healing. Thank you for listening.